All right, we're live.
Wow.
So, hi, I'm Michael Harris, and I am finally getting to talk to my friend Sally Stubbs, and welcome to the Google Hangout. And I thought we'd just would kick around some ideas. I've been reading some of your emails coming in, and one of the things I was extremely interested in was your usage of the word "you," and the title of your email that you sent out was, are you who you are think you are, and it goes on to explain part fragmentation, and I thought just let you kind of like jump in and kind of let the people who are watching this video learn a little bit more about Ericksonian hypnosis.
Okay, hi. Thanks for the invitation, Michael. Good to see you. Hi to everybody listening. And yeah, lots of great thoughts to you all from a very cold autumn evening here in the English Lake District. I think we've even got frost. So, where do I begin with these big questions? My focus for all of my professional life has been on the mind, emotional, debilitating symptoms, from the depressions, the anxieties, to the phobias, fears, nervousness, lack of self-esteem, the terror of the churning stomach and the tightening throat and the pounding heart in certain situations. And so my abiding question has been, who is the you within that person who's suffering that those symptoms belong to? And my understanding now, after 30 years of rigorous and passionate inquiry, research, study, is that you that the symptoms belong to is a fragment of the you, the fragment of the self that became stuck in a time band which we will call T-1. So there are moments in T-1 where unconsciously the self freezes time, and that fragment of the self, or the fragment of you, becomes stuck somewhere in that band in time. And somewhere in that band in time, the T is standing for trauma. So T-1 is a moment just prior to a trauma or a crisis or a catastrophe or a perceived trauma. And that fragment of the you, or that fragment of the self, doesn't grow up. It remains stuck in that moment in time. And that fragment is faithfully replaying the experiences of those moments over and over again for years, a lifetime maybe.
Mm-hmm. Can I pause you for a second?
Yes, please do. I'm Irish, I can talk forever.
Okay. I also wanted to include, and you haven't made this distinction, but I wanted to see if you agree with me, that I have also encountered those frozen moments that they've become generational.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is I frequently work with gymnastic instructors. And I have noticed that gymnastic instructors, whatever their performance problems, whatever their injuries were, they unconsciously train those injuries and train those performance problems into their athletes. And that's one aspect. And then the other aspect is if you consider the family curse, that's curse in quotations, in which people are playing out whatever psychodramas that they have that occurred 1 generation, 3 generation, 5 generations ago.
Yes, absolutely. So
So
yeah,
I just wanted to see if we were on the same page.
I'm interested in your work in performance skills, but I've never studied that or worked with that myself, and I am interested, and I'm interested in the intergenerational problems, which of course are not genetically driven, but are psychologically and emotionally, maybe some people would even think spiritually driven through the generations. Absolutely. The T-1 strand in time that I'm discussing with you and your listeners, I hope if they have questions or arguments, they'll contact me. I'll be delighted to hear from your listeners. Is that unconscious freezing of the moment in time, if we take it for now, in this particular lifetime, was originally unconsciously a protective mechanism to stop, in an attempt, sometimes unsuccessful attempt, to stop a trauma happening, to stop the next moments getting worse. And so my devotion, that's an interesting word, I wasn't expecting to use that word, but I have been devoted to studying and developing the language which will speak to the owner of the symptom who is residing in that T-1 moment. Have I lost you, Michael?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely not.
Brilliant.
No, I'm interested. I'm interested in hearing. I know how I do it. I was just interested in hearing how you're doing it.
How I do it is that I have two ways of working. So in the last 10 years or so, I've been working on my audio therapy courses. And in those courses, I'm using universal metaphors to represent the problem states. And in my one-to-one work, I am taking the symptom, which is what it means. It is the sign, which is signposting the journey to the problem, and the problem always is frozen moments in the T-1. Whereas a lot of traditional therapy, when I was first studying hypnotherapy in particular, the tradition was that the therapist would regress hypnotically the client back to trauma. That isn't where the problem is. The problem, which is maintaining the symptom, is in the T-1 frozen moments. So how I do it is I just hear what the symptom is that the person wants to resolve, and I ask questions of the symptom. And the simple questions are, when somebody says, I want to stop being depressed, I want to stop being frightened, nervous, angry, anxious, usually they're saying, I want to stop something. And the question is, how do you know that you have that symptom? Whatever it is, the answer will be the guidance to the T-1 frozen moments.
Can you cite an example?
An example would be, I'll be really simplistic. An example would be, I want to stop feeling really frightened whenever I have to travel away from home. So the question is trance-inducive in itself, because it's an unusual question, and it starts accessing unconscious information. And the question would be, and when you are frightened, whenever you travel away from home, how do you know you're frightened whenever you travel away from home? And the answer will be unique that person. They may say, for example, I get a churning feeling. So the question is to locate the churning feeling. And the question in the back of my mind is, who does this churning feeling belong to? Because the present-day client knows it's illogical, pretty much illogical, to be frightened to travel away from home, even to the next town, or even down to the store a couple of miles away. So that churning in the stomach is going to lead us to the T-1.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Excellent.
Am I being a bit too dense here?
No, no, not at all. I was going to. I had an example in my mind. I had an interesting client come in one time, and she had closed her finger in the door of her car, and just about clipped it off, and it was sewn back on, and it was all black, and it wasn't healing. And she had done a wide variety of things, and some person had, and I know who it is. I'm purposely omitting their name. Referred them to me, and this lady comes in and sits down and pretty much starts telling her story about how she had decided that she was going to stop being a massage therapist and she was going to go teach yoga for a living. And she was on her way to the final exam when she closed her finger in the door. Isn't that an interesting coincidence? And and what I said to her was, well, the very first thing that I think that you need to do would be apologize to your finger, because it almost had to give up its life to get your attention. Wouldn't you really like to hear what it and ultimately we got all through that, but literally her finger had a very important message for her.
Absolutely, yes.
And that her finger had no interest whatsoever in her stopping doing massage, and
yes.
She ultimately revealed that she had been avoiding a friend of hers' phone call, and this friend of hers had a massage school, and while her finger was healing, because she couldn't teach yoga, she took a position teaching massage at about twice the amount of money that she normally had, and we did some other cleanup stuff. But to me, this is a perfect example of what you're talking about, is that we get these messages.
Yes.
And we're not always open to or in a position that we are saying, okay, I am feeling something, or I'm experiencing something over and over again, and I wonder what that message is.
Yes, absolutely. So in a way, we could look at that model of T-1 in that the finger getting trapped in the door was stopping her moving into what was perceived as a probably catastrophe for her, to go and teach yoga to make more money, rather than do what Hans wanted to do in handling her life correctly for her. So it was stopping that movement into the yoga. There'll be more in that story, but it's a great story.
Yeah, it was actually her finger was far more brilliant than either one of us. So
yes, and so was my example, Michael, of the I'm frightened to be away from home and go away from home even a mile down the street to the store. And how I know that is that my stomach is pounding whenever I think of going away from home. And the pounding then tells its story. And again, traditionally, a lot of therapeutic strategies are attempting to do exactly the opposite to what you did with your lady's finger, listen to the story, we try to get rid of the pounding in the stomach. We try to tell that person that they can think really good and positive thoughts and their stomach will calm down. It's a load of nonsense. The stomach's got a story to tell in its pounding, as the finger trapped in the door and not healing had a wonderful story to tell. The wonderful outcome, great work.
My friend Andrew Austin, that I wish to introduce you to, and I wish I could remember where it was in England that he is at. But he uses a model called metaphors in motion.
Yes.
And in the metaphors in motion, he said, okay, you and I were walking down a path, and we come upon a guy who is in a pit. Like literally, he's in the pit down there. We can see him, and we say, "Hi, how are you?" And what are you doing? And he said, "Well, I'm in the pit of despair." And he said that what's real interesting, because he's actually a former psychiatric nurse, and he said that the way that medical science generally handles this, is they would say, "Okay, well, let's take these pills." So you don't feel bad while you're in that pit, or you can do some type of NLP or hypnosis technique in which they can imagine themselves how they will feel when they were out of the pit. But wouldn't the smart thing to do would be to get him a ladder or get him a shovel so he could dig out,
Right. Now, I have an argument with your friend, and I'd love to meet him. I have watched him on his website, in that the understanding of T-1 is that that person needs to find their own way out of the pit without being handed a ladder or given any suggestions or presuppositions. So they would be allowed to find their own resources without, and I know through life it's great that we give each other a helping hand, friendship, but when somebody's in the pit, we can say, I'm here, I'm listening to your story. However, you're waiting and allowing and providing a safe environment for them to find their own resources to get out of their own pit. And part of the problem is in that kind of use as metaphor and epistemological metaphors is that a person ended up in a pit as a protection mechanism in case they got crushed by the oncoming traffic. So they're not going to get out of the pit till they know there isn't any oncoming traffic that's going to be pushing them. A big topic we're talking about, powerful topics. But part of what I'm really passionate about is this freeing power within yourself by exploring your own strengths and resources to get out of anybody's own metaphorical pit. Is that when we're in the T-1 situation, part of the self has gone into hiding or feels lost or on the back foot or dissociated in an attempt to protect themselves from the next moment. And what gets lost and condensed into that moment in time is all kinds of power within that needs and can be freed. And the powers I would say, like innocence, hope, creativity, feeling accepted, even love, finding love again, those kind of powers.
Absolutely, accessing those resources, and frequently, when those people are when they get into those stuck states or those age regress states, those resources aren't there. They're unavailable, or they're in a different area of their mind, and I completely agree. Let's shift gears here for a second. How do people find you?
Yes, on my website, sally-stubbs.com. And
you also have YouTube, do you not?
yes, Sally Stubbs Limited on YouTube. Got about 44 videos up there. Lots of, let's say, I don't really like the word, but free, like gifts to explore my work, for help people to explore their own resources, their own dreams. So, yeah. And I'm delighted to hear from anybody privately on my private email address, sally@sally-stubbs.com. Be delighted to answer any questions.
I'm going to be a little more gregarious than that. You people need to call Sally. She is fabulous.
I love your gregariousness. Thank you.
Exactly. Well, I'm only one person. I don't know about you, but if I got 50 new clients, I don't know where I'd put them. So my job is to share the joy. So I want people, you know, there's going to be people that they connect with me and they want me, but there are lots of people that you know, they're going to connect with somebody else, and you have this lovely accent.
Yes.
And I think that they should be contacting you. And I love your work. I love what you're doing. And
I love it too.
I've looked at your videos. They are profound. They are profound. And you know, go to you said Sally Stubbs Learning Channel on YouTube.
Sally Stubbs Limited.
Sally Stubbs Limited.
Stubbs Ltd. Lima
Okay, LTD.
Limited, Ltd. Yes. And that one-to-one, Michael, was, you know, about 10 years ago. I realised that one-to-one, I can only see one person one-to-one. So that's why I developed all my work onto the audio courses, which do permanently. That's what I want, permanent cure for people's symptoms, the nervousness, the worrying, the stressing, the fears. So all that's on my audio courses, which are wonderful. I love them. I love doing them. I loved writing them. And I took, I think I've taken what I would call the jewels from many schools of psychology, psychotherapy, hypnotherapy, and then my own ingredients over the years, which I've added to that amazing, nourishing food of my audio courses. And they're not fast food therapy. They're half an hour a day for 40 days. But I'm not interested in fast food. It doesn't nourish. It doesn't fully regenerate and regrowth and find the inner resources. So I'm in for the real thing rather than fake things.
Exactly. Well, thank you, Sally. Let's go ahead and stop for today, and I'm going to put this video up. But I highly recommend anybody who watches this video, please contact Sally-Stubbs.com or email her at sally@sally-stubbs.com. I'm going to go ahead and stop the broadcast.